I'm Dr. Anne Maria DeMars. I'm the principal investigator of the Growing Math Project here at Seven Generation Games. And in our first year, one of the most common questions we've had asked by teachers is how they could use the platform to accommodate learners with individual differences, learners with special needs, learners who are gifted. So here's just a couple of examples that I wanted to show you. So the first one would be using games that are a couple of years below students' grade level. This is a fish leg game, which you might guess. It teaches fractions, but it's played by users about age 11 and up. You could see it has actual game level, not educational game, but game level graphics, music, gameplay. So that's my first suggestion is say you're working with students who are in 7th, 8th, even 9th grade, and they need to work on fractions. Here's this really great game that you can check out. It is available on Mac, Windows, or iPad. So that's my first suggestion. We've even had a couple of professional gamers play it on Twitch. So you can tell it's not a school game, it's an actual game. So that's one suggestion. Start the students in a game that's 2 or 3 years below their grade level. If you do not have iPads, if you only have, say, Chromebooks. Another option, about at the 6th grade level, and you have students who are in the 7th or 8th or 9th grade, I'll bet you they'd be willing to play Forgotten Trail. Stop right there and add too that both Forgotten Trail and Fish Lake are integrated with lessons about Ojibwe history and culture. So students can be learning, while they're learning the fractions, the statistics, they can also be learning their history, their social studies. And this is another way to involve students in the game, especially if you're teaching in a school with a high indigenous population. And even if you're not, it's just like our CEO said, she was never a plumber in overalls, and yet she really liked playing Mario Brothers. And I truly believe that it's not only Latino children in this country that need to learn Latino history. It's not only Indigenous children that need to learn about Indigenous history and culture. And it's of interest to students a lot of times intrinsically because they are interested in learning about the other cultures. And the gameplay itself is intrinsically interesting, and it's teaching mathematics that's at, depending on which game you choose, at a 4th to 6th grade level. So then the other question I get from people is, what if my students haven't even mastered multiplication yet? Do you have anything for them? And the answer is yes. We have games for students who are not at as high a level as 4th through 6th grade. And the thing that I would start with would be the Making Camp series. So you go to Growing Math, you click on games, this is probably the easiest way to do it, or you can go to the games portal for kids, even easier. And let's pick Making Camp Premium. So this game also, not all of our games, as you'll see in a minute, are integrated with Ojibwe history and culture, but this game includes both multiplication and division. So they can click on numbers. And this, funny enough, is one of the most popular ones, even with students who are way past 3rd grade level. So in this, you can learn about how some Native American tribes use dogs to haul heavy loads. It was called the travois. And just an FYI, there's a really good growing math lesson that Irish Pepito from South Dakota did using the Travois. So you want to get a dog. With 6 times 5. We get a dog, name your dog. This is one of the things that I will see students calling over their friends. What should I name my dog? It's a little virtual dog. But anyway, students really like to play this. We have adults who play this game. And so Making Camp has lots of different activities. It's kind of along the lines of the casual games. Think about Bejeweled or those types of things that people play. So that's one example. There is the memory game in there. So obviously you click on the cards that match. Some of them are just little pictures and some of them are equations and the answers. So 54, 6 times 9. So there is an example from Making Camp, and Making Camp also, I'm talking about this because I'm going to get back to Making Camp at the end, also has a life section, a word section. So the life section includes things like, this example.
What's a Red River cart? It's a cart made of wood and raw hide. The Métis people invented it over 200 years ago. Descendants of white traders and native women in the northern US and Canada call themselves Métis, a French word meaning mixed. One horse could pull 1,000 pounds in a Red River cart.
So have your students play these games if they're at the 5th grade? Most of our games are designed to be of interest across an age span, say 3rd through 5th grade or that. And we actually have more 4th graders playing this game than we do 3rd graders. So they can learn their mathematics, but then they're also learning about Ojibwe history and culture in these games. And you get points. Let's see, I was paying attention. Yeah. And then what can you do with these points? Well, you can spend them to outfit your virtual wigwam. So let's talk about that for a minute, because then the next question comes up. Well, this is all great. You talked about high school students, you talked about elementary students or middle school students that might be a little below grade level. You talked about even upper elementary, like 5th graders might be below grade level. But what about my students? My students are non-readers, so they can't even read. There are a couple of ways that we've had teachers use the growing math games, particularly Making Camp, with the students who are non-readers. So for one thing, you would have to have yourself, if you're the teacher, an aide, if you have one, help the student to log in, because obviously they're not going to be able to do that if they can't write. But a thing that we often have teachers do, we don't have them, they do it on their own, is they'll play the videos for the student. So they'll tell the student, all right, go here, they'll log them in, watch the video, and then when you get here, pick life. So I'm just going to show you a little bit of beginning. Let's pretend I'm a new player. And we'll do it with a different game, Making Camp Lakota. Just another example. So these games, I'll get back to this too, can be played, Making Camp Lakota can be played in either Lakota or English. We play in English. So you tell your student, just go ahead and click on start. And click the arrows.
For generations, our people roamed on plains from what is now Minnesota and Iowa to Montana and Wyoming, up to Canada, through the Dakotas and down into Nebraska, maybe even further. There are no states nor borders as they exist today. It was all
So the students can play through the introduction that tells them a little about the Lakota. They can play through an introduction that tells them how to play the game. And then when they get to this point, instruct them to, when you get to the part where it has these 3 boxes, click on the one that says life. They don't know how to read yet, click on the one that has a big map next to it. So they get to this part, pick any of those videos that you want. Play that.
The Dakota that lived on the plains were known as the Teton Sioux. And to them, the buffalo was their most important possession because they lived and died on horses. With horses, they were able to hunt buffalo much more effectively than they were able to if they were on the ground. And so they usually picked the best horse, trained him, fed him, babied him, and they used this horse. And sometimes a buffalo horse is also called a war pony. And this war pony was trained in such a way that he responded if you touched his knee or you pulled on his mane, he would stop. And that left the buffalo pony's owner hands free to, he could do anything he wanted. He could shoot an arrow, or he could sling a tomahawk, or he could do anything like that.
So after they've listened to the video, then you would ask them the questions, because if they're non-readers, they're not going to be able to read it. And this, by the way, is used not the way the Making Camp series is used not only by students with special needs that have, say, learning disabilities, but also in K-2 classes where maybe they're not at the level of mathematics or reading yet, but the teachers still want their children exposed to the cultural content. So they would either have an individual child do it on an iPad or show it on a smart board or projector for the whole class. And then as a class say, no, which of these is true? We're going to put this in the, maybe read this one to them and say, it was larger than regular horses. Was that true or false? And if they take it into the right basket, they can all vote on it if it's a group, or the individual students say it's false. Okay, drag it in there. The buffalo pony was trained so that if you pulled his mane, it would stop. Okay, so auditory comprehension is one of the things that we're often working on with students who are non-readers. So you can, again, read them the questions and have them, and a lot of times kids like to do this on their iPad or on the smart board, physically drag it in. Okay, that's true, drag it in. That's also reinforcing those couple of words, true and false, right? So that's one way you could do it. And then in all the Making Camp games, every time you get answers right, whether it's a math problem or it's a life problem or words problem, you earn points. So what do you do with those points? If you click over here, all of the games have a wigwam, a teepee, a hogan. Making Camp, Dakota Past and Present has camper. So click there and I can go in and trade for anything. I think I've already bought everything. I've played this. Oh, go to my first wigwam. All right. So I've already bought everything in this game, but I can trade. You can pick work with your students and say, what would you like to pick? You can have one of them come up or on their iPad, select whichever item it is. And then one of the neat things here is any of the items you click on will tell you, for in this case, a parfleche was often used to carry pemmican, a mix of dried meat and fruit. So you can click on these with the students and give them more information. And they can move them around. This is one of the things students like to do. Once they have earned all of these items, getting points from the different games, they can decorate things however they want. They can move things around. Oh, ooh, this is a mouse. If I click on it, it's going to kind of creepy mouse, but okay. So that's one of the things that you could do with Making Camp. They can print out their TP, wigwam, whatever it is that they have in this particular game. In this one, it's a wigwam. They can move it around. They can decorate things. Now, one more point. Let's look at all the growing math games by device. So you can click on the iPad games, and a really cool thing we have, both for kids who are just learning their letters, numbers, and for students who are maybe a little bit behind in math, are the AR apps. So for example, here is Math, the Universal Language Lakota. And with any of these, you print out the cards, hold the phone or tablet over the card to show the answer.
4 times 6 equals 24.
Dopa kigale shakbeki wikjamana num sum dopa.
The right button reads the answer in English, and the left button reads it in Lakota. And for students who are still at the point of learning their numbers, there are number cards for that.
5,
Zapta.
As someone who taught kids in special ed, in both the self-contained class and in the regular classroom, I know that one of the things that you're always asked is to have things that are age appropriate. That you don't want kids who are in 9th grade coloring. You don't want kids who are in 8th grade cutting and pasting. So how do you manage to work that? Well, one thing that's very age appropriate for kids from 3rd grade on up are games and using their phone. And every kid, I mostly teach middle school, every kid either has a phone or wants a phone. So if you can give them a phone or a tablet that they can use, that's going to be fantastic. The other thing that a lot of schools have are foreign languages. So whether it's teaching the indigenous language in a community, Lakota, Dakota, Navajo as a second language, or Spanish, then that's another thing that's a very age-appropriate activity. If you go back to the Growing Math site, you can see, for example, bilingual games in Spanish under our games link here. So we have Making Camp Bilingual. We'll take a quick look at that. It is exactly the same as Making Camp Lakota, which is in Lakota and English. There's Making Camp Bilingual, which is in Spanish and English. So you can play any of these videos. Let's do one of our math ones.
What's the word? Division terms. Not knowing the proper division terms can lead to big problems. If a scientist working in his lab mixes up the dividend and divisor when doing calculations and working with chemicals.
¿Cuál es la palabra? Términos de división. Cuando no sabes el término propio de división, puedes tener dificultades. Si un científico está trabajando en su laboratorio y
any of the activities in Making Camp Bilingual can be played in English or Spanish. And as you might have noticed on that one in division terms, the division terms were still shown in English, even when she was explaining them in Spanish. Having math class in your Spanish class can be another way of, yet again, finding more time to have math in the curriculum without taking something else out. And in fact, some of the teachers using our games are actually Spanish teachers who just wanted something a little bit more interesting in their classroom. Than one way of having an age-appropriate way of your special needs students working on their math, say at the 3rd and 4th grade level, is having them do it with the bilingual games, and they can listen to it in English because they're probably not fluently bilingual in Spanish or Lakota, and they can listen to it in the second language. So those are several ways that you can use the Growing Math platform for your students with special needs. Another thing that I hadn't brought up, so now I will, is if you have students who are advanced, it can go the other way as well. Say you have a 3rd grader who has already passed through division. He or she can probably play Fish Lake and have a really great time. And I think that is a really great thing to do. So now your 3rd graders zipped onto fractions while the other students haven't yet. That's fine because that child's advanced. It's really discouraging for a child when they get done with their assignments and then be told, here, do some more worksheets. So if instead they can play this really fun game that at the same time teaches them about fractions or statistics and Ojibwe history, or teaches them long division while the other kids are still doing multiplication, and at the same time it teaches them about Dakota history and culture, it's a very encouraging thing for the students. It's something they can do individually. So having those games that can be assigned that provide that instruction that's very fun and also above their grade level is a great thing to do. So those are my ideas for using 7th generation games to accommodate students with special needs. There you go. Hope that was helpful, and see you in the next video.